Hi, so this video is about active filters. Almost all communication system use filter. Okay, so if you're going to notice the black diagrams in our communication subjects, uh, filters are always present. Okay, so in this topic, we will discuss a variety of passive and active filter circuits. So basic filter terminologies and mostly first order stages will be covered due to time limitations. So, what are filters? Filters are circuits, okay, which passes one band of frequencies while rejecting the other or rejecting another. So, filters can also be defined as uh, a circuit that can separate desired signals from undesired signals. Filters blocks interfering signals. Filters enhance speech and video. Okay, so if we wanted to remove noise from a certain speech or video, so we wanted to enhance then that, so that we can use filters. And then we have also filters for altering signals in other ways. So there are basically two types of filters. We have passive filters and we have active filters. Okay, so passive filters, they are built with passive components or passive materials, namely capacitors, inductors, and of course resistors. Okay, so we will be using passive filters if we generally want to use them in frequencies above 1 megahertz. If we do not require power gain in our circuit, and usually passive filters are characterized as relatively difficult to tune. Okay, so we have active filters. So active filters are built with resistors, capacitors, and operational amplifiers. So most active filters are being implemented using operational amplifiers. So since they make use of operational amplifiers, and we know very much now that certain operational amplifiers functions only below 1 megahertz. So this type of filters are useful when we are dealing with frequencies below 1 megahertz. Okay, so since we have an operational amplifier, therefore this active filters already has a capability to have power gains, and they are relatively easy to tune compared with passive filters. Okay, so we have here ideal responses. Okay, so in this topic, we will be dealing with ideal frequency response of the different types of filters. So we have low pass filter, we have high pass filter, we have band pass filter, we have band stop filter, and we have all pass filter. Okay, so when we say frequency response of a filter, we're talking about a graph. Okay, so this graph shows the relationship between a voltage gain versus the frequency. Okay, so we will be starting with the first type or simplest type of filter. So we have the low pass filter. Okay, so low pass filter, so the response of a low-pass filter is also called a brick wall response. So it is called a brick wall response because the right edge of the rectangular of the rectangle looks like a brick wall. Okay, so if you're going to make if you're going to look at the response, it looks like a brick wall. That's why it's called a brick wall response. Okay, so how does your low pass filter function? So it passes all frequencies from 0 to a certain cutoff frequency, and then it blocks all frequencies above that cutoff frequency. Okay, so it has a zero phase shift for all frequencies as long as it is in the pass band. So what do we mean by that? Zero phase shift is very important, particularly when we are dealing with input that are non-sinusoidal. Okay, so when a filter has a zero phase shift, it means that the shape of the non-sinusoidal signal is preserved or it doesn't change as your signal passes through your ideal filter. So technically, if for example, our input is a square wave, okay? So we all know that a square wave has a fundamental frequency and harmonics, okay? So if the fundamental frequency and all the significant harmonics, approximately the first 10 harmonics are within or inside the passband, then the square will have the square wave will have approximately the same shape at the output. So technically, the output will definitely look like your input. So that is the importance when we say zero phase shift, okay? So this is the response, okay? So this is the frequency response for a low pass filter. So it has something, it is a graph showing the gain. So the vertical axis, the y-axis here is for the gain, and the horizontal axis here is for the frequency. So let us define several terms, and then these several terms will also be used in the other types of filters, okay? So we have the pass band. So where is the pass band? So for low pass filter, this is our pass band, okay? So when we say pass band, these are the frequencies between 0 and a certain cutoff frequency. So this is our cutoff frequency, meaning from 0 to a certain cutoff frequency, we have zero attenuation or no signal loss, okay? So therefore, as you can see, the voltage gain here is constant. We have zero attenuation or zero signal loss, okay? So aside from the pass band, we have the stop band, okay? So this is our stop band. And the stop band for a low-pass filter starts from the cutoff, this is above the cutoff frequency. So in this case, we cannot see a gain here, we cannot see an output here. Therefore, when we say stop band for an ideal low-pass filter, its attenuation is infinite. So infinite attenuation meaning nothing is left with your input signal. So all of your input signal is attenuated. So therefore we cannot see any output at the stop band, okay? And then we have another thing here. So we call this as the transition. So what is the transition? So this one is your transition, okay? So this is the roll-off region between the pass band and the stop band, okay? So this is our pass band, and right away we have your stop band here. So as we can see, our transition here is what? Vertical. So this is for an ideal low pass filter. So let us remember the terms. We have the pass band, we have the stop band, and we have the transition. Okay, so this is our high-pass filter. Okay, so our high-pass filter, on the other hand, blocks all frequencies from 0 up to a certain cutoff frequency and passes all frequencies above the cutoff frequency. Okay, so here is the frequency response, and let us see. So there is a change in the position of our stop band and our pass band. Okay, so now from 0 up to a certain cutoff frequency. So this is now our stop band. As we can see, this has an infinite attenuation, or we cannot see any output in the stop band. Okay, so we cannot see any voltage gain in the stop band. Okay, now for high pass filter, okay, so the pass band is above, okay, above the cutoff frequency. So from the cutoff frequency and so forth, we have our pass band, wherein in our pass band we have 0. Okay, so we're in our pass band we have 0 attenuation, and likewise we also have a transition here. So we have a vertical transition, okay, transitioning from the stop band going to the passband. Okay, so this is the frequency response for a high-pass filter. Okay, now, let us go to bandpass filter. Okay, so this is now the response for a for an ideal bandpass filter. So in our bandpass filter, it technically blocks all frequencies from 0 up to the lower cutoff frequency. Then it passes all the frequencies between the lower. Okay, so between the lower, it blocks all frequencies from 0 up to a certain lower cutoff frequency. So this time we have 2 cutoff frequencies, and then it passes all the frequencies between a lower and the upper cutoff frequencies, and finally blocks all frequencies above the upper cutoff frequency. Okay, so this time, where is our passband? So this is our passband. So we have one passband and we have two stop band. Okay, so we have two stop bands. So this is one passband and we have two stop band. Okay, and then we have two vertical transitions here. Okay, so our passband are all the frequencies between the lower and upper cutoff frequency. So in the passband, again, we have 0 attenuation. And then we have your stop band. So we have two stop bands. The first is below the lower cutoff frequency, this one, and the other one is above, okay, the upper cutoff frequency. So in these two stop bands here, we have both infinite attenuation. And then we have what? We have two vertical transitions, okay? So from stop band to pass band. So this is your first vertical transition, and then from pass band going to the stop band, this is our second vertical transitions. Okay, so bandpass filters are very important. Okay, so they are very useful when you want to tune in a certain radio or television signal. And not only that, it is also very useful in telephone communications equipment, and it is used for separating the different phone conversations that are being simultaneously transmitted over the same communication path. Okay, so as we can see here, we have a new term. Okay, so we have here bandwidth. Okay, so what is our bandwidth? So for bandpass filters, we have different terms or formulas to study. First is we have the bandwidth. So the bandwidth is the difference between the upper and the lower 3 dB cutoff frequencies. Okay, so bandwidth is given by the formula. Bandwidth is given by the formula F2 minus F1, wherein your F2 and your F1 stands for the upper and the lower cutoff frequencies. For example, we have a cutoff frequencies equivalent to 4. So for example, we have 450, for example. So we have 450 kilohertz up to 460 kilohertz. Okay, so what will be our bandwidth? Our bandwidth is simply 460 minus 450 kilohertz, giving us a bandwidth equivalent to 10 kilohertz. Okay, so if we have two cutoff frequencies, having a value of 300 hertz and 3,300 hertz, okay, so our bandwidth is equivalent to 3,300 minus 300. So that will give us a bandwidth equivalent to 3,000 hertz. Okay, so as simple as that. All you have to do is to subtract your higher cutoff frequency, your lower cutoff frequency from your higher cutoff frequency. So we also have another term here. So we call this as the center frequency. Okay, so center frequency is the geometric average of the two cutoff frequencies, and this is given by the symbol FO. So center frequency is the square root of your, so geometric average, so the square root of your F1 and your F2. Okay, so if we have to get the center frequency for this for this 300 and 3,300, so that will be given by, so square root of 300 multiplied by 3,300. Okay, so this will give us a value of 995 hertz. Okay, so that what do we mean by this? Okay, so what is this particular application? So you might be familiar with the 300 and 3,300 hertz. Okay, actually this 300 to 3,300 hertz is being made use for to separate phone conversations. Okay, so that means to avoid interference between different phone conversation, okay, your bandpass filter must have responses that approach the brick wall response with a bandwidth equivalent to 300 Hz and a center frequency equivalent to 995 Hz. Okay, so next, we have here our quality factor. So, quality factor or Q. So, this is defined as the center frequency divided by your bandwidth. Okay, so, for example, if we have center frequency equivalent to 200 kilohertz, for example, and we have a bandwidth equivalent to 40 kilohertz, for example, so therefore we have 200 kilohertz divided by 40 kilohertz. So kilohertz will be cancelled out. Therefore, our quality factor is a unitless parameter. Okay, unlike our bandwidth, which is given in terms of hertz, and also our center frequency, which is also given in terms of hertz. Okay, so therefore, our Q here is equivalent to 5. Okay, so when our Q is greater than 10, when our Q is greater than 10, we can use an approximation, wherein our approximation is that instead of using the geometric average, we will be using the arithmetic average. However, this will be approximately equal. So this approximation will only be used whenever our quality factor is greater than 10. So instead of using the square root of F1 times F2, we will be make use of arithmetic average instead, which is equivalent to the sum of F1 and F2 divided by 2. Okay, so in a radio receiver, for example, we have a cutoff frequencies. Okay, so we have a cutoff frequencies of 450 kilohertz to 460 kilohertz, for example. So if you have read or watched the videos regarding our principles of communications, okay, so this must be familiar with you. So these two frequencies must be familiar with you, because this is a bandpass filter being used in the IF stages, okay, intermediate frequency stages. Okay, so if we're going to make use of this, this is simply equivalent to 450 plus 460 divided by 2, which will give us an intermediate frequency of 455 kilohertz or a center frequency of 455 kilohertz. Okay, so we have here a value for Q. Okay, so we have here a value for Q when your Q is less than 1 or when your Q is greater than 1. Okay, so this is what we call a narrow band filter. So when your Q is less than 1, it is a wideband filter, and when your Q is greater than 1, it is a narrowband filter. So it has something to do with the design of your filter. So for example, we have a narrowband filter. So given a frequency range of 95 kilohertz to 105 kilohertz, okay? So in this case, we have a bandwidth equivalent to we have a bandwidth equivalent to 10 kilohertz. So subtracting that, so we have a bandwidth equivalent to 10 kilohertz, and then we have a center frequency, okay? So we have a center frequency which is equivalent to the square root of 95 kilohertz multiplied by 105 kilohertz, okay? So using this center frequency and this bandwidth, we can solve for the value of Q, okay? So this is approximately 10 kilohertz. So if you're going to compute for this one, this is approximately equivalent to 100 kilohertz, okay, divided by 10 kilohertz. So Q is approximately equal to 10, which is what? Greater than 1. So in this case, our design must be a narrowband filter. So this design must be implemented using a narrowband filter. Okay, on the other hand, if we're going to make use of this one, okay, so for example, we have an average, we have a difference of 3,000, okay, and then we have 300 and 3,300, so we get the average 3,300 plus 300, okay, so that will give us 1,000, okay, so if our Q is equivalent to 1,000 divided by the bandwidth, which is equal to 3,000, so this will give us 0.33, and this is what? This is less than 1. So if this is less than 1, therefore for telephone system or telephone design, we are going to make use of a wideband filter. Okay, so the formulas are very simple. Next, we have a bandstop filter. Okay, so what is a bandstop filter? So in this case, this passes all frequencies from 0 up to the lower cutoff frequency. Then it blocks all the frequencies between the lower and upper cutoff frequencies. And then finally, okay, so it passes all frequencies from 0 up to the lower cutoff frequency. So this is our pass band. Okay, then it blocks all the frequencies between the lower and the upper. So this makes us our stop band. And then again, passes, okay? Passes all frequencies above the upper frequency. So we have now here our pass band. As we can see, in this example, we have 2 pass bands and we have 1 side band. Okay? So again, stop band. So again, in the stop band, all frequencies between the lower and upper cutoff frequencies have a infinite attenuation, while in our pass band here, it has 0 attenuation. Okay? And one more thing, we have also 2 vertical transitions. Okay, so we have here the first vertical transition and we have the second vertical transition. So for stop band filters, we have the same formula for bandwidth, we have the same formula for the quality factor, and we have the same formula for the center frequency. Okay, so bandstop filters are also called notch filter. Okay, so what do we mean by notch filter? It notches out or removes all frequencies that are in the stop band. Okay, so while it passes all the frequencies that are not within the stop band. Okay, so that is our bandstop filter. Then we have all pass filter, okay? So in our all pass filter, as you can see in the figure, it has a pass band. So all of this is a pass band and it has no stop band. So what do we mean by an all pass filter? So this passes all frequencies between 0 and infinite frequency. Okay, so this is useful. This is actually useful when we want to produce a certain amount of phase shift for the signal being filtered without changing its amplitude. So it may seem rather unusual to call it a filter since it has zero attenuation for all frequencies. So technically, if you're going to look at the frequency response, we are not removing, or we are not filtering any frequency here. Okay, so what is the function? Why is it still called a filter? Okay, so it is a filter because of the effect it has on the phase of the signals passing through it. Okay, so we have what we call a phase response. Okay, so what do we mean by a phase response? Response is a graph of phase shift. Okay, so a while ago we have the gain versus the frequency. So this time when we say phase response, this is a graph of the phase shift versus the frequency. Okay, so for ideal low pass filter that was mentioned a while ago, phase response of 0 degrees at all frequencies is a characteristic of an ideal low pass filter. Okay, so because of this, a non-sinusoidal input has the same shape after passing through an ideal low-pass filter, okay, provided that its fundamental frequency and all of its significant harmonics are present in the sideband, okay. However, the phase response of an all-pass filter is different from that of the ideal low-pass filter, okay. So in here, in the low-pass filter, each distinct frequency can be shifted by a certain amount as it passes through the filter. Okay, so one good example for an all-pass filter is the phase shifter. Okay, so the phase shifter was discussed in our electronic oscillator topic. Okay, so phase shifter is a simple example for an all-pass filter, or it has zero attenuation at all. Okay, so because phase shifter has zero attenuation at all frequencies, but an output phase angle can be altered between 0 and negative 180 degrees. So a phase shifter is a good example for an all-pass filter. Okay, so those definitions that we have discussed a while ago are all ideal responses. Okay, however, ideal responses are very impossible to realize with practical circuits. Okay, but we have 5 standard approximations used to compromise for the ideal responses. For this 5 approximations, so this each of them offers an advantage that the others don't have. Okay, so the approximation chosen by the designer will depend on what is acceptable in a certain application. Okay, so for example, your okay, so we have here approximate responses. So what do we mean by approximate responses? So a while ago, when we say attenuation, so this refers to the loss of signal. Okay, so the output voltage at any frequency, so this is given by the formula, the output voltage at any frequency divided by the output in the midband, because in the midband we are assuming, okay, so we are assuming a constant, okay, a constant response at the midband. Okay, so for example, our V out, okay, so our V out at some frequency is equivalent to 1 volt, while our V out at midband is equal to 2. Okay, so therefore we can solve for the attenuation. So attenuation is given by 1 volt divided by 2 volts. So this will be cancelled out. So this is unitless. So this is equivalent to 0.5. Okay? So 0.5 is equivalent to negative 6 dB. However, we usually define, or we usually represent attenuation in terms of decibel. That's why we call it decibel attenuation. Okay, we put a negative sign here because since it is attenuation, therefore we are expecting an answer which is negative. So we place a negative sign here. So it's negative 6 dB, but our attenuation is positive 6 dB because of the negative sign here. Okay, so the negative sign here allows us to always have a positive value. Okay, therefore, since your midband is always constant, midband is our reference value here. So we make use of the midband as our reference. Okay, so we are comparing the output voltage at a certain frequency to the output in the midband of a filter. Okay, so for example, the output voltage is, the output voltage is 0.707 of its midband. So therefore, it is given as 3 decibel. Okay, so for 4.5 of the midband, so it is given by 6 dB. Okay, 0.25 of its midband, so it is 12 dB, and for 0.1 of its midband, it is equivalent to 20 dB. Okay, so if you can still remember the relationship of having in a factor of 2 or octave, or a factor of 10 or decade. Okay, so we will be focusing more on the low pass filter, but if we understand how it acts or how it functions in the low pass filter, it is the same as with your high pass filter, band pass filter, band stop filter, and the all pass filter. Okay, so here in the ideal scenario, we have zero attenuation in the pass band, infinite attenuation in the stop band, and a vertical transition. Okay, they are said to be unrealistic. Okay, so those are ideal values. For a realistic response, okay, so this is how practical low-pass filters are being implemented or being built. Okay, so now, as instead of having a zero attenuation for the pass band, okay, so for the pass band, it is from 0 to FC, okay, while the stop band, it doesn't start right away, it doesn't stop right away. Okay, so it doesn't stop having an output when once you reaches the cutoff frequency. So we have here a new term, which is your FS. Okay, so the stop band starts above FS. And then the transition is no longer the vertical transition that we have seen a while ago. However, the transition happens between your FC and your FS. Somewhere between your FC and your FS, there is your transition. And as we can see, this is no longer a straight or a vertical line. Okay, so for the pass band, it is no longer zero attenuation. Okay, so we have a new term here. We have AP. Okay, so the gain now, okay, the gain now is from a certain 0 to a certain AP. So for a pass band, having a gain of 0.5 dB, so we are compromising the ideal response by allowing up to 0.5 decibel of signal loss. Okay, so this is your ideal pass band, but this is our actual, okay, pass band frequency. So we are allowing a certain, for example, our AP is equal to 0.5, for example, 0.5 dB. So that is, we are compromising the ideal response by allowing up to 0.5 dB of a signal loss anywhere in the pass band. Okay, so as for the stop band, For example, we have a stop band. Let us say our AS stop band gain equivalent to 60 dB. Okay, so as you can see, it is no longer infinite attenuation. Okay, so what do we mean by that? If we have 60 dB, so we are accepting an attenuation of 60 dB or more in the stop band. So it is no longer equivalent to infinite because that is the ideal value. Okay, so as for the transition, for example, if FC is equal to 1 kilohertz, okay, and Fs is equivalent to 2 kilohertz, so we have a roll off. Okay, so we have a roll off of let us say 60 dB per octave. Okay, so if we are given AS, which is equivalent to 60 decibel. Okay, so for the we are given 5 approximations. Okay, so we have to look for a trade-off between the characteristics of the passband, the stop band, and the transition region. So we now have here the actual values, and then we previous slides we have discussed the ideal values. So any changes between the two, that will be the trade-off between the characteristics of our passband, our stop band, and our transition region for the given 5 approximations. Okay, so that we can compare them with the ideal values. So we have another term here. So we have order of passive filters. So we have here order of, when we say order of passive filter, so this is equal to the number of inductors and capacitors in a certain filter. Okay, so for example, we have 2 inductors and 2 capacitors. Our order is equivalent to 4. Okay, so for example, we have 5 inductors and 5 capacitors, so therefore our order is equivalent to n. So for passive filters, order is also given in terms of n. So the order of a passive filter also tells us how complicated the filter is, because the more inductors, the more capacitors, or the higher order we have, the more complicated your filter is. Okay, so next we have for the active filter. Okay, so this depends on the number of RC circuits. Okay, so a pair of resistor and capacitor, or a pair of an RC circuit is also called a pole. Okay, so it is how many poles does your active filter contain. Okay, so again, the order of an active filter is also given by n. However, to make it more simple, all we have to do is to just count. Okay, so let us just count the number of capacitors. So approximately, the order of an active filter is approximately the number of capacitors that you can see in a certain active filter. So for example, if an active filter contains RC circuit, so therefore, for example, it contains 8 RC circuits, so therefore your N is equivalent to 8. However, counting the individual RC circuits or combination of RC circuits in any active filter is usually difficult. So for simpler method, we just count the number of capacitors. Okay, so if we have, for example, 12 capacitors, therefore, the order of our active filter is equivalent to 12. So let us now discuss the different types of approximation. Okay, so as mentioned earlier, we have 5 types. So this is the first approximation. We have the Butterworth approximation. So the Butterworth approximation is also called the maximally flat approximation because the passband attenuation is 0, like in the ideal. Okay, through most of the passband, but it decreases gradually to AP at the edge of the passband. Okay, so we have the roll-off the roll-off at a rate of approximately 20 dB per decade, wherein N is the order of your filter. Okay, so for example, it can have a roll-off equivalent to 20 dB per decade, or it can also have a roll-off of 60 dB per octave. So N depends on the number of or in the order of your filter. So the major advantage of a Butterworth approximation is the flatness of the passband response, while its major disadvantage is the relatively low roll-off rate. So this is your approximation, so this is the approximate Butterworth low pass response. So if we're going to compare it with a low pass filter, this is the ideal, okay, low pass filter, while this is the Butterworth low pass response. Okay, so first order Butterworth filter rolls off at a rate of 20 dB per decade or 60 dB per octave, because first order means our N is equivalent to 1. Okay, however, when we say fourth order, so it has a roll-off of 80 dB per decade or 24 dB for octave for fourth order. So for ninth order, it is equivalent to 180 dB per decade or 54 dB per octave. Okay, so this type of response can be taken off if, for example, our AP is equivalent to 2.5 dB, our FC is equal to 1 kilohertz, and our N is equivalent, or our order is equivalent to 6. Okay, so as you can see, our cutoff frequency is 1 kilohertz. So at 1 kilohertz, this one, it's now starting to roll off. Okay, so this is our example for a Butterworth approximation. Next, so in some application, a flat passband response is not very important. Okay, so in this case, we have a Chebyshev approximation. So this has the same specs with the Butterworth, okay, but it has a faster. So if you're going to compare this one, it has a faster. So if we're going to look at this one, it has a faster roll-off in the transition region compared with the previous slide in the Butterworth. Okay, so Chebyshev approximation, it rolls off faster in the transition region. However, as you can see, there are ripples. Okay, so there are ripples in the passband of the frequency response. So the number of ripples depends on the order. Okay, so if our order is 6, for example, as with the previous one, so 6 divided by 2, we have 3 ripples. Okay, so we have 1. Ripples means peaking. How many times does you have your peak value? So we have 2, and then we have 3 here. Okay, so it has the same specs with Butterworth, but with faster roll-off in the transition region. Okay, so the attenuation in Chebyshev is always greater than the attenuation of a Butterworth in the same order. So for example, if a filter has an order of 10, therefore the number of ripples that might appear in your passband is equivalent to 5. So if our order, for example, is 20, so we have 10 ripples. Okay, so this is an example of a response having 10 ripples. Okay, so if we will count that, so we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So we have 10 ripples. Okay, so we have equal ripple approximation if the ripples have the same peak-to-peak value. So this is just a zoomed effect. Okay, so we just zoomed out so that you can see the ripple, but in reality, so it is very, very small, just like this one. So actually in this one, you cannot really identify the ripples, but we have 3 ripples there. So peaking 1, 2, and we have 3. So the acceptable ripple depth is around between 0.1 to 3 dB. So applications in which flat passband is required and also fast roll-off, okay? So in this case, the roll-off rate in the transition region is what? Faster compared to the roll-off rate of the Chevy Chev. So we have when we have what we call the inverse Chevy Chev approximation, okay? So we have here flat band response, flat pass band response. As we can see, we cannot see any ripple here, okay? Fast roll off, as we can see, the roll off is very, very fast. So from 1 kilohertz, it rolled off right away to 2 kilohertz, okay? But we can see ripples in the stop band, okay? So it is characterized as flat pass band response and a rippled stop band response. So when specifying an inverse Chebyshev filter, the minimum acceptable attenuation throughout the stop band must be given, okay, because the stop band has ripple that may reach this specific value. For example, 60 dB. Okay, for example, you're not allowed to have 60 dB. So as you can see, it is approaching, okay? So it has a value of 60 dB at a certain different frequency. Although there are frequencies that doesn't have any ripples, okay? So we have here a term monotonic. So what do we mean by monotonic? These are approximations wherein the stop band has no ripples. So our previous two approximations, the Butterworth and the Chebyshev, they are said to be monotonic because they do not have ripples in the stop band. However, inverse Chebyshev is not monotonic because it has ripples in the stop band. So the fourth approximation is the elliptic approximation, okay? So this has a characteristic of the fastest possible roll-off in the transition region. However, if the rippled pass band and a rippled stop band are accepted or acceptable, a designer may choose the elliptic approximation. Okay, so for the elliptic approximation, we have both ripples in the pass band and in the stop band. So elliptic approximation is also called Cauer filter. Okay, so it optimizes the transition region at the expense of the pass band and the stop band. Okay, so however, this is the one having the fastest roll-off. Okay, so a rippled pass band, a very fast roll-off, and a rippled stop band. This is the characteristic of an elliptic approximation. So after the response breaks at the edge frequency, the initial roll-off is very rapid, slows down slightly in the middle of the transition, and then becomes very rapid toward the end of the transition. Okay, so among the four approximations that we have discussed, the elliptic approximation will always produce the most efficient this design with the lowest order. Okay, so what do we mean by the lowest order? When we say lowest order, this means it has the simplest design. Okay, so the one which will give us a good approximation with a very, very simple design. So it is the elliptic approximation. And then we have the Bessel approximation. On the other hand, it has the highest order or the greatest circuit complexity of all approximations. Okay, so the Bessel function has a flat pass band. So we have a flat pass band and a monotonic stop band. As we can see, we cannot find any ripples here, okay? We have roll off in the transition region is much lesser, okay? So it has the slowest roll off, okay? So but it is optimized to produce a linear phase shift with the frequency. So it looks like somewhat a Butterworth approximation. However, it is more slower in its roll-off value compared with the Butterworth. Okay, so again, it needs a higher order, thus greatest circuit complexity compared with the other approximations. Okay, so actually class, Bessel filter trades off some of the roll-off rate to get a linear phase shift. Okay, so why bother with a linear phase shift? Okay, so as you can remember, as we can recall, shape of the non-sinusoidal would be preserved as it passes through a filter once we get zero phase shift. Okay, but we cannot get a linear phase, but we cannot get that. However, a linear response will give us a phase shift which increase linearly with frequency. So if it has something to do with linearity in terms of phase shift, so Bessel function or Bessel approximation is the best approach. So we have here the summary, okay? So when it comes to the pass band, so again, what's the ideal? Ideal is flat pass band, flat stop band, and vertical roll-off. So we just have to compare with those with the ideal value. Okay, so the best step response, however, is your Bessel approximation. So this is true with other filters. So for example, for high pass filter, for band pass filter, for band stop filter. So if it has a for example, if it has ripple in the pass band like that one. So for pass band, for example, if it has ripple in the stop band like that. So that is the same. Okay, so we just discussed the low pass filter. However, it is also true with the high pass filter, with the band pass filter, and with the stop band filter. Okay, so depending on your design, depending on your needs, you can make use of these 5 different approximations. Okay, so whether you need a flat pass band, whether you need a faster roll off. Of course, since this is a filter, we really wanted to have a faster roll off. Okay, so regarding the complexity, do we need a lower order or higher order? Okay, so is a rippled pass band applicable or acceptable? Do we need to consider, or is a step response a very important consideration, and so on? So depending on the different the requirements in your filter design, so you just have to choose what among these different approximations will be used. So definitely you will be choosing one of these because the ideal filter is not practical. Okay, so it is not possible to create or to build. Okay, so we have here a passive filter. So what do we have here? So this is a second order. So as you can see, by keeping the resonant frequency but varying the Q, we can get ripples to appear in the passband of higher order filters. So we have here a second order LC filter. So why is it considered to be a second order LC filter? So if we're going to count the number of inductor and capacitor that we have, so we have one inductor and one capacitor. So this is 1 plus 1, so we have 2. So therefore, we have a second order LC filter. Okay, so the second order low pass LC filter has a resonant frequency, so the same with the resonant frequency that we have used in your electronic oscillator circuit. Okay, and Q, So our Q is R divided by your XL. So the resonant frequency and the quality factor is similar to a series or a parallel resonant circuit. Okay, so our XL here is calculated, of course, at the resonance frequency. So let us have an example here. Okay, so we have in our first figure or letter A, so if we're going to solve for our resonance frequency, so this is 1 all over 2 pi square root of, this is 9.55 millihenry multiplied by, this is 2.65 microfarad. So this will give us 1 kilohertz. So our resonance frequency is equivalent to 1 kilohertz. So solving for your Q here, so your Q is equivalent to R, which is 600 divided by 2 pi multiplied by our resonance frequency, which is 1 kilohertz, multiplied by, so this is 2 pi FL, okay? So XL is equivalent to 2 pi FL, and our L is equivalent to 9.55 millihenry. So that will give us a Q equivalent to 10. So what do we mean by that? Okay, so as we can see, at 1 kilohertz, which is our resonance frequency, we have a peak value. Okay, so our ripple peaks at 1 kilohertz. So it increases 20 dB. Okay, so it increases 20 dB at 1 kilohertz. So the higher the Q, the higher the increase in the voltage gain at a certain resonance frequency. So what do we do? Let's go to letter B. So in letter B, in figure B, we solve again for FO. So that is 1 all over 2 pi square root of. So we change the value of our L. So this time it is 47.7 millihenry multiplied by the capacitor, which is 531 nanofarad. Okay, so what happens here? It is still 1 kilohertz. So why is it still 1 kilohertz? So we increase our inductance by a factor of 5, okay? But as we have to decrease also our capacitance by a factor of 5 so that we can have the same resonance frequency, and we have it. However, there will be a change in our Q. Okay, so in our Q, this will become 600 divided by 2 pi. This time we have 47.7, and then we have 1 kilohertz. So as we can see, we have a value of Q which is now equivalent to 2. So increasing the inductance lowers the value of our Q. Okay, so again, it still peaks at 1 kilohertz, this one. So it still peaks at 1 kilohertz, but the voltage gain is only 6 dB. Okay, so which results in a lower Q. So this is our approximately 6 dB, and this is our 20 dB. Okay, so we have here another one. Okay, so if we continue to decrease our Q by increasing again. Okay, so let us increase again our inductance. So this is 135 square root of 135 millihenry times 187 nanofarad, increasing again your inductance and decreasing your capacitance. Okay, so we have the same cut-off frequency or resonance frequency. So solving for Q, we have 600 all over 2 pi. Again, this is still 1 kilohertz. This is multiplied by 135 millihenry. So this will give us 0.707. Okay, so when we plot that, okay, so when we plot that, this almost looks like a Butterworth response. So the response now somewhat is a Butterworth response. Okay, so that is where the design is being implemented. So every time you see a Q that is 0.707, resonant peak disappears and the passband becomes maximally flat. Okay? So any second order filter with Q equivalent to 0.707 always has a Butterworth response. Okay, so that is how you can get a Butterworth response for a second order filter. So we have a damping factor. So damping factor is another way of explaining the peaking action at your resonance. Okay, and damping factor is equivalent to alpha 1 all over Q. So if we're going to look at to solve for our alpha a while ago, so our first Q is equal to 10, so that is 1 all over 10, so that will give us 0.1. Our second damping factor is equivalent to 1 all over our Q is equal to 2. So this is equivalent to 0.5. And our third one is 1 all over 0.707, which is equivalent to 1414. So what do we notice? No? So we notice that the higher the damping factor, the smaller your peak is. And this can be seen, okay, so these values can be seen through this figure. So 0.707 gives us a Butterworth response. Okay, so the higher the damping factor, the smaller your peak. So when we say this is the effect of Q on the second order response. Okay, so we say damping. When we say damping, we means reducing or somewhat diminishing. Okay. So this, we have here higher order LC filters. Okay, so this is built by cascading second order stages. So this is one second order. So this is the second order. We have the third second order. So if we're going to count, we have 3 inductors and we have 3 capacitors. So that is equivalent to 6. Therefore, this is equivalent to 6th order. Okay, so 6th order is built by cascading 3 second order stages. So this is a Chebyshev filter with an edge frequency of 1 kilohertz and a ripple depth of 1 decibel. So the filter consists of 3 second order stages, which means that the overall filter has an order of 6. So take note, for passive filters, we just have to count the number of inductors and capacitors in your circuit. So that will give us 6. So if we have our N is equivalent to 6, so that also means we have 3 passband ripples. Okay, because the number of ripples is equivalent to 6 divided by 2. Okay, so notice how each stage has its own resonant frequency and Q. So this has its own resonant frequency and Q. The same is true with this and the same is true as this. So the staggered resonant frequencies produce the 3 ripples in the passband. The staggered Qs maintain a ripple depth of 1 dB by producing peaks at frequencies at which other stages have rolled off. Okay, so for example, the second stage has a resonant frequency of 747 Hz. So at this, the first stage has already rolled off. So nag-roll off na to because this is only 353 and this is 747. Okay, so the second stage compensates for the roll-off in the first stage by producing a resonant peak at 747 Hz. Similarly, sa third stage, it has a cut-off frequency of 995 Hz, and at this point, the first and the second stages have rolled off already. Okay? but the third stage compensates for their roll-offs, producing a high Q peak at 995 Hz. So the idea of staggering the resonant frequencies and the Qs of second-order stages applies also to active filters, just like in a passive filter. So it says here, to build a high-order active filter, we can cascade second-order stages whose resonant frequencies and Qs are staggered in precisely the right way to get the desired overall response. Okay, so let us now proceed to active filters. Okay, so first-order stages, first-order or one-pole active filter stages have only one capacitor. Okay, so however, first-order or one-pole active filter stages can produce only either a low-pass or a high-pass response because one pole or one capacitor can give us only one cut-off frequency. So low-pass and high-pass filter each has only one cut-off frequency. However, band-pass and band-stop filters can be implemented only when n is greater than 1 because band-stop and band-pass filters needs two cut-off frequencies. So we have here the different ideas or different designs for a low pass stage. So this is a non-inverting unity gain. So all of these three are all low pass filter. Okay, so as you can see, they only have one capacitors. Okay, so we have here a non-inverting unity gain. So the 3 dB cutoff is given by the formula 1 all over 2 pi R1 C1. So all of them, they have the same. Anyway, we only have one R1 and we only have one C1. Okay? So when the frequency increases, okay? So when the frequency increases above the cutoff, the capacitive reactance decreases. So if this decreases, most of the input voltage will be dropped into your capacitive reactance, leaving small amount of input. Okay, and if we have a small amount of input, we have a lower output. Therefore, it will come a time that this will be shorted and therefore you have no input and then we don't have any output. That's why as the frequency increases above the cutoff, it reduces your non-inverting input, therefore reduces your output. Okay, so these are the designs for a low pass stage. So this is a unity gain wherein your voltage gain is equivalent to 1. We can also have a low pass filter with gain. So we have a non-inverting voltage gain. So non-inverting, that means we put the input at the non-inverting terminal. So the gain is equivalent to R2 divided by R1 plus 1. While the cutoff frequency is 1 all over 2 pi R2 multiplied by C1. So if we wanted an inverting with voltage gain, so we put it in this manner. Okay, so in this manner, so at high frequency, at low frequency, the capacitor is open. So when the capacitor is open here, all we have is a simple inverting amplifier with a gain equivalent to negative R2 all over R1. But if this is shorted, okay, we have your low pass filter. Okay, so if that is shorted, so this will be eliminated and all of the input will pass through your output here. Okay, so if that is the case, you don't have any output for an inverting with voltage gain. So these are all the designs for a low pass filter, depending if you don't need any gain, if you need a non-inverting gain, and if you need an inverting voltage gain. Okay, so we have here your high pass filter. Okay, so for high pass filter, again, these are your designs. we just have to change the position. Okay, so if in lower frequencies this is open, so if this is open, you don't have any input, so therefore we don't have any output. But if it is shorted already, then we have an input, therefore we have an output, and that happens upon increasing the frequency. So there will be an output during high frequencies. Okay, so if we need no gain, so we use this circuit. So with an op-amp, if we need a non-inverting gain, so we need this. And if we need an inverting voltage gain, so we need this value here. Okay, so this is now your high-pass filter designs, okay, for active filters. So these are all single stages, okay, so they are all single stages. So because your capacitor here, okay, so this doesn't count, so this is our first pair, okay. So however, for band pass and band stop, we really need at least more than 2 poles. Okay, so we have here VCVS, voltage controlled voltage source, unity gain second order low pass filters. So if we need 2 low pass filters, so this is still a low pass filter, however we have a 2-pole stage. Okay, so this is most common because they are easy to build and analyze. Higher order filters are usually made by cascading second order stages. It has a resonant frequency and a Q to determine how much peaking occurs. So take note, if we have a Butterworth, our Q must be 0.707. If we have a Bessel, your Q must be 0.577. Okay? So this is also your voltage controlled voltage source high pass filters, second order. So this is second order. So notice you have already 2 capacitors. Okay, so first order 1 capacitor, second order 2 capacitors. So for band pass filters, we have 2 different designs. Okay, so depending on its center frequency and its bandwidth. Okay, so when your Q is less than 1, therefore this is a wide band response, and this is simply cascading a low pass stage with a high pass stage. However, if we have a Q which is greater than 1, we have a narrow band response, and technically it has a different design. Okay, so we will be okay, so for the design of a wideband filter, we have already solved for this a while ago, and we found out that our Q here is equal to 0.33, which is less than 1. So for a wide band filter, the cutoff frequencies are much closer. Okay, so because of this, the sum of the passband attenuation is greater than 3 dB at the cutoff frequencies. So in this case, we just have to cascade. Okay, so we just have to cascade a high pass filter with a cutoff frequency of 300 Hertz and a low pass filter, okay, with a cutoff frequency of 3300 Hertz. So if we join them, okay, so if we join these two, we have a bandwidth equivalent to 3300 minus 300, which is equivalent to 300 kilohertz. So this is how we usually design a wideband filter. We just have to design a high pass and a low pass filter, and then we have to combine the two. For a narrow band filter, okay, so what is a narrow band filter? When your Q is greater than 1, okay, so we have two options. So we have the multipole feedback band pass stage. As we can see, we count 2 capacitors here, meaning it has 2 stages, okay, or 2 poles. And we have the tunable center frequency with constant bandwidth. Okay, actually these two are just the same. However, this allows us a more variation, okay, in our design, because anytime we can have a different center frequency. Unlike this one, we can have, we only have one single frequency or cutoff frequency. Okay, so this is for a narrowband filter. Okay, narrowband bandpass filter. And lastly, we have our bandstop filter. So this is the design for our bandstop filter. So we have here the voltage gain. Okay, so as we can see, this is a non-inverting voltage gain because the input here is being placed at the non-inverting terminal. Okay, this one at the non-inverting portion. Okay, so we have here the value for Q, and we have here your FO. So this bandstop filter here will have a response which is equivalent to this one, and as you can see, this is the response for a non-ideal notch filter. Okay, so we will not deal on higher order filters anymore because of lack of time already. So this is just the basic. Okay, so if you still don't understand the lesson, you can watch other videos, or you can read some books regarding filter, but I will only give very simple problems, or very simple questions in your exam. Okay, so thank you and bye bye.